power plant, right? Ropur nuclear power plant in Bangladesh. India has accepted to construct the transmission lines for this power plant, right? So we know about the nuclear technology altogether, right? So we know how the nuclear power can be generated. So we know what the nuclear material is. We know Indian nuclear program. We know everything about nuclear technology. The absentees don't know, right? We have discussed in the class science and technology. Right? The absentees will not know, but the people who are present will get to know that. So whatever the electricity that is being generated in the nuclear power plant, that has to be supplied through the transmission lines, right? That construction of the supply transmission lines was actually taken up by India. So this is a trilateral agreement between the Russia, India and Bangladesh, right? It is an agreement between Russia, Bangladesh, India, and the nuclear power plant was under the control of Russia. The Russia has invested for the development of the Ropur nuclear power plant, the same as India. Right? We got the technology from Russia itself, right? That is Ropur nuclear power plant, and it is under construction, right? It is about 2.4 gigawatts of nuclear power plant in Bangladesh, and constructed at Ropur, and 2 units were actually there. And any other important point? That's all. Right? Not much important points are there. So India is constructing the transmission lines for this power plant. The next one, Maitri Setu. Right? Rama Setu, Setu nothing but the bridge. Right? Maitri Setu, the friendship bridge. Right? So India is actually constructing a bridge across the river Feni. And recently we have made an agreement, right? Previously we made an agreement to share the water from river Feni, right? From the river Feni. Now what we are doing, we are constructing a bridge across the river Feni, connecting the northeastern territories to the Bangladesh, right? So that the trade to the northeastern territories becomes way more easier, right? By the construction of this bridge, the connectivity will be there, and the trade of the goods can be much more easier. For that, the Maitri Setu bridge is being constructed, right? The Feni river flows between Indian boundary in the state of Tripura and the Bangladesh. Across the boundary it is actually flowing. So we are connecting Bangladesh with Tripura. So the trade to the northeastern territories might actually increase, right? That is Maitri Setu, okay? So it symbolizes the growing bilateral relationship between both the countries, and it is actually done by National Highway and Infrastructure Development Corporation Limited. So this is the organization which has taken up for the construction of the Maitri Setu. Okay? Yes, after the bridge is operational, India's state of Tripura will become the gateway of the northeast, right? Which have access to Chittagong port in Bangladesh, right? Directly Chittagong is about 80 kilometers from there, right? So whatever the goods you are bringing to the Chittagong port, as per our agreement, where it has opened the ports of Bangladesh to India, right? So directly from there, you can go to Tripura. From Tripura, you can supply it to entire northeastern territory. So that becomes the gateway of the northeastern territory, right? So that becomes the gateway of northeastern territory, right? So like Afghanistan is the gateway of the Middle East, right? To access the entire Middle East, Afghanistan, you have to pass through Afghanistan, right? In that way, okay? So now this gateway of the Middle East, okay? The gateway of the East, Myanmar. The Myanmar is the gateway of the East, right? To access all the Asian countries, you have to pass through Myanmar, right? That is gateways, okay? That is Maitri Setu. Finally, the current affairs are done, okay? So we have concluded India-Bangladesh relationship, right? We have concluded India-Bangladesh relationship. We discussed about the historical aspects, we discussed about the relations, we discussed about the issues between the India and the Bangladesh, and we discussed about the current issues, right? So current relationship. So tell me as a whole, is India's relationship with Bangladesh good or bad? Good? Pakka? 100%? Can it be better? Yes, it can be better. Definitely it can be better, and we are working towards the progress of the relationship between India and Bangladesh. Okay? And also remember, the relationship between India and Bangladesh is time tested. The same way with the Nepal, right? The same way with the Nepal, and the same way with any other country. it is time tested, we say. The time tested phrase is actually used. That means India and Bangladesh relationships are not consistent, right? It is not like all weather friendly, right? Not always like rubbing the shoulders together, no. When the government changes, the support towards India and China changes, right? Sheikh Hasina government always in support of India. The other government, the military, right? When the military might takes the power, so obviously it is pro-China, right? During that time, so there will be hassle between India and Bangladesh. The same case with the India and the Nepal. It is time tested, right? We have seen through unlimited crisis in the Nepal, right? The same thing with the Myanmar. Till the, sorry, what is this? No, just a minute. Not the Myanmar, but Maldives. With the Maldives also it is a time tested one. With the Maldives also it is time tested, because the Maldives, there was a constitutional crisis in the Maldives 2 years back, right? There was a constitutional crisis. During that, whatever the projects that were allocated to India were withdrawn, and they have given those projects to China, right? So in that way, the entire 1.5 degree channel, which is actually passing through the, what is the island? Maldives, yes. Thank you. Right? 1.5 degree channel we say, which is actually going through the Maldives. That is an important trade and transit route for the oil supply to the west to the east. Right? Entire oil, it is actually coming through the 1.5 degree channel and it goes to the South China Sea. Right? Or towards any other territory over there. Right? So this 1.5 degree channel is extremely important. Right? So if the China is actually controlling it, that territory, the islands of Maldives, so it can have greater access or control over the 1.5 degree channel. So in that way it can control the entire countries over there, right? In that way it has modified, right? And later, after the government has actually collapsed, again the next the president of Maldives has supported India, right? So in that way we call these kind of relationships as time tested relationships. We call these kind of relationships as time tested relationships. Clear?
Sir, what is the benefit to India making huge expenditure on other countries?
The first thing, the peace and security. The next one, more investment means more returns, right? And relationship with the other countries will actually affect the India stand in the international fora.
So, but if government changes, the country will change that.
Obviously, yes.
Then it will not much influence.
In that way, yes. In that way, because the government is not stable, even the other countries need not invest in India as well, right? Right? So, but that is not the parameter for us. That is not the parameter. But for the development, we need a stable government. Obviously, we require a stable government for a smooth functioning. But having the same government altogether for those many years, that is not democracy. Right? The countries can actually prosper only when there is a competition. Right? But if the government is too volatile and the policies change rapidly, it is useless. That is the reason Andhra Pradesh, right? The then Prime Minister of India, upon the separation of Telangana and Andhra Pradesh, they promised special category status to Andhra Pradesh. The then Prime Minister, Manmohan Singh. And after Narendra Modi has come, he established Niti Aayog, and as per the Niti Aayog documents, he said, none of the states are going to get special category status. Right? And what the government of Andhra Pradesh said, Arey yaar, whether it is Narendra Modi or not, the Prime Minister of India has promised. So, whether you change the Prime Minister seat or not, whether you are a different person or not, respect has to be given to the chair. And whatever the decisions that were done by the previous governments, it is the responsibility for the new government to proceed them, rather than change entirely. But not every time it happens. But yes, whatever the point you said, if the government is so volatile, development will hamper. But for India or any other country for that matter, in the international fora, you need to gain the support. You need to have friends, right, for the development. So that's why you have to invest. That's why Gujarat Doctrine, right? In the Gujarat Doctrine we said, India as the biggest nation in the South Asian region, it will give everything it has without expecting anything in return. Right? So India will do anything possible. That's why even during the crisis between India and the Nepal, right? So immediately when the Nepal has encountered the earthquake, very huge earthquake, immediately within 24 hours we have sent the relief. Within 24 hours we have sent the relief to Nepal. We did not say, nice na, we will not do now. Ask China only. No, we did not say like that. Right? So we have sent the relief immediately to the Nepal. So that is what the importance of relationship is. Right? So we always grow towards the peace and security, peace and tranquility. Right? Rather than just disrupting the things. For that, investment is one area. Investment is one area. And also the investment will actually enhance the India's presence in those territories. Right? So that is extremely important. Okay? So the next one, India, Bhutan. So coming to the Bhutan. So Bhutan has been the best friend of India. The Bhutan has been the best friend of India since the very beginning. Right? Since the independence till now, we never had any problems with Bhutan.
Because of don't have any option.
But yes, this is the point which I have said, but please don't write this answer in UPSC mains. Right? Yes, the Bhutan being the smallest nation, as well as Bhutan being the landlocked region. Being the landlocked region. You know the landlocked region, right? That means there is no sea, covered in either way. Right? So the trade and transit has to happen through the other country. Right? Trade and transit has to happen through the other country. So what if the other country stops it? The entire trade will actually collapse automatically. We did that to Nepal. Right? We stopped the trade in transit, and Nepal GDP growth rate used to be about 9.7, which actually dropped down to about 3.5 or 3. In that way it has dropped. Right? So Nepal was initially called the miracle of the East, with that huge growth rate. And suddenly it started having the military alliances with the China, and we stopped the trade. We warned them, we stopped the trade, and they were like they decoupled the Indian rupee. Previously, even if you give the Indian rupee, the Nepal government used to accept it as a legal tender, right? But it stopped that, it decoupled. And then we actually stopped the oil also. About 95% of the oil is being imported from India. We stopped that. So the entire economy collapsed. Entire economy collapsed. So for the landlocked regions, it is a difficult thing. So you can ask me this question, sir, isn't it injustice? So is there no international law to control this? Right? Because there are many landlocked regions. Not everything has the luxury to access the ports. Right? So is there no any international treaty or international agreement? Right? So as per the United Nations Charter, it is the fundamental right of every landlocked region to have free trade and transit through any country. Right? As per the United Nations Charter, it is the fundamental right of any landlocked region to have free trade and transit. Right? That means it is a basic right which cannot be violated as per the United Nations. But we have violated. Right? Sometimes it happens. Yes? But yes, we have a law as per the United Nations that it is the fundamental right of any landlocked region. That means if the landlocked region have 2 or 4 countries together as a boundary, so all the 4 or 5 countries has to accept for the free trade and transit. They cannot charge or they cannot stop the goods. Right? No excessive duties can be levied. Transit duties cannot be levied. Right? So in that way we have this. Okay? So we have United Nations Charter. So coming to the Bhutan. Okay? So Bhutan being the smallest in the Himalayan region, extremely significant to India. Extremely significant. Why? The very first reason, we already discussed this particular point, because the Bhutan acts as buffer region between the China and India. Right? The Bhutan acts as a buffer region between India and China. India and China. So if the China is actually coming aggressively, it has to pass through the Bhutan first. It has to fight with other nation. So it will actually give ample time for India to make the necessary arrangements. Right? To make the necessary arrangements. Right? We discussed about Battle of Panipat. Right? So Battle of Panipat 3, 61. Right? In the Battle of Panipat, so when Ahmad Shah Abdali has come to near to Delhi, then we got to know they are coming. Right? Immediately because of the hast arrangements and all, lost. Right? India lost. Right? And also the Mughals were also not able to counter the invasions. Right? Even the Mughals were not able to counter the invasions. And that's why Battle of Panipat is extremely significant when it comes to the modern Indian developments. It is extremely difficult, Battle of Panipat 3, because it really did not say who is going to rule India. But it gave a picture of which rulers cannot be the kings of India. Right? So, it is not like the Britishers can be the rulers. No, it never said that. Right? The fight was between the Mughals as well as the Marathas. Right? So, when they were actually combating, so obviously they were defeated in the Battle of Panipat 3. Right? Because they were defeated, it is not like both of them are not eligible enough to compete. So that gave the dominance of the East India Company. Right? So the entire thing is the result of one aspect. We were not prepared. We did not protect the northwestern frontier. We did not protect the northwestern frontier. We did not maintain the buffer region there. If there had been a buffer region there, we would have got the news, because they are fighting over there. By the time the war is actually picking up the pace, we would have known the incident, and immediately we could have made all the arrangements, because all the nobilities, right, were scattered across India, right? Because the entire Mughal empire is ruling all of India is through the nobles, and they used to maintain their own army. Whenever the Mughals needs, they used to call the nobles, come on, let's fight together. That is how they have captured the larger territory, and they have governed such a large Indian subcontinent. But now the nobility has decreased, right? Because of the wars of succession, all the nobles were like, no, I will go to Hyderabad and I will establish an independent state. I will go to Bengal and I will establish an independent state. I will go to Awadh and I will establish an independent state. So the nobility, the character of the nobility decreased. At the same time, the skill of war has decreased. Now we do not have necessary arrangements to combat the enemy. Right? The same thing happened in 1962, Indochina. Right? We never expected that the China would attack India. Right? India was so confident, Indo-Chini Bhai Bhai. We used to say, Indo-Chini Bhai Bhai. Suddenly the Chinese attacking, I was like, maybe not true, maybe fake news. Check WhatsApp again. No, there is no chance. Right? So, because India was so clueless, India got defeated. We cannot make the same mistake. Right? So, that's why the buffer, the maintenance of the buffer state was not done by India, but was done by the British. Right? The Bhutan was made the buffer state by the British, and by de facto, India became the independent nation, and it started to maintain the Bhutan as a buffer state. Right? So, Bhutan is a buffer state, so it is extremely important to India. Right? Autonomy of Bhutan is extremely important to India. And the next one, we have extreme strategic importance. Right? Strategically, it is very important because we have Chumbi Valley towards the other side. Right? We have Chumbi Valley towards the other side. So, you might have heard about Doklam standoff. Right? It happened 2015. Right? Around 2015, Doklam standoff. Doklam crisis we say, or Doklam standoff we say. Right? Doklam plateau. So what is the significance of a plateau? Significance of a plateau.
So we'll have major.
So what is this? Plain, plateau, hills, mountains.
We can watch.
Yeah, we can watch, but here The plateau is a higher ground compared to that of the plains. The plateau is a higher ground. The flat area, which is actually raising above 100 feet from the mean sea level. We call them plateaus. They are very flat. They are flat and plain. We call them plateaus, right? Which are raising several meters, so not feet, several meters above the sea level, right? The Bangalore, the Deccan Plateau. Because the Bangalore is in Deccan Plateau, we have such a cold temperature. It is about 900 meters up from the sea level. 900 meters, that means if you are near the sea, you are about 1 kilometer up almost. Right, 1 kilometer up compared to that of the sea, compared to that of the mean sea level. So because we are at that high temperature, the climate is so cold here. Right? Anyone who says what is so special about Bangalore? Climate. Other than climate, weather. Other than weather, climate. The best thing. The worst thing means traffic. Right? So this is what we say. The climate. Why? Because of the plateau. Right? Deccan Plateau. Right? So, and here, when it comes to China and India, so we have Chumbi Valley and we have plateau here. Right? Chumbi Valley and a plateau there. Right? And here it is China. So strategically, because there is a valley towards the China side, it is extremely difficult for China to combat from that area. Right? Right? So you know the old, if you have seen the old forts, right? Around the fort, if this is the wall, right? If this is a wall, around the fort, they used to dig trenches like this. Right? If this is the land area, they used to dig trenches and they used to put it over here. Because when the enemies come, thinking that our wall is very small, immediately they'll see some depth. We call them trenches. Right? So through the trenches, it is extremely difficult to fight the enemy. Right? The same problem is with China. The China is here and we have a valley here. Right? So from the valley, it is extremely difficult to fight and come against India. So that's why they are trying to gain dominance in the Doklam Plateau. They are trying to gain the dominance over the Doklam Plateau, and Doklam Plateau is being claimed as its own territory by China. Right? So, China. Right? So, it is trying to gain dominance over there. So, what happened? The Bhutan, that is a bilateral relationship between Bhutan and China, technically speaking. It is a bilateral relationship between Bhutan and China. But as per the India-Bhutan Friendship Treaty, if there is any third party aggressor against the Bhutan, India will actually give the military support to the Bhutan. So, immediately after the Bhutan is being threatened, right, we went with our army. And it is a standoff. Right? So, you make one move, we will make two moves. Right? So, it is up to you. Right? The standoff, that is what we call Doklam standoff. And later what happened? The winter came. So the winter is not accessible to anyone. Right? We cannot survive those cold winters. So that's why during the winters, everyone withdrew from the Doklam Plateau. So that is what we call Doklam standoff, and the importance of Chumbi Valley. Right? Because of Chumbi Valley, we have greater strategic importance. The Bhutan is extremely important for us because of Chumbi Valley. And the next one, the reason why the Bhutan is extremely important is the Bhutan has helped India to contain the insurgency of National Democratic Front of Assam and United Liberation Front of Assam. National Democratic Front of Bodoland and United Liberation Front of Assam. These are the insurgent groups from the northeast. What they did? They went to Bhutan and they were fighting against India. So at that time, the Bhutan has permitted Indian military to march into the streets of Bhutan. Right? The Bhutan has permitted Indian military to march into the streets of Bhutan, and we have searched house by house and we have brought all the insurgents back to India. Right? So in that way, the Bhutan is extremely important for us to counter the northeast insurgency. The next one, it is strategically important for both India and China. We know that. It is strategically important for China and Bhutan, China and India. So China wants Bhutan, right? So that it can have a really closer view towards India. India wants Bhutan so that it acts as a buffer state, right? So in that way we have India, China as well as the Bhutan, okay? So that is the importance of the Bhutan. Now we look into the history. Early 18th century, right? So during the times 1730, where the Mughal Empire is totally destabilized, right, because of the continuous wars of succession, right? So ultimately Muhammad Shah, right? Who is that? Who is the king? The last. Bahadur. No, Bahadur Shah is the youngest one after the death of. Wait, let me. After Aurangzeb has died, it is Bahadur Shah, right? After Bahadur Shah has died, it is. I forgot modern India. Who is the last one? Muhammad Shah only, sir? Muhammad Shah, right? Bahadur Shah? Bahadur Shah Zafar, who is the last one who remained? Bahadur Shah 2. Yeah, Bahadur Shah 2. He is the last one, right, who remained?
Yes, sir. He is the last one.
He is the last one to remain. 1730s. I want 1730s.
Last person 1857, sir.
Who is the last person? Bahadur Shah 2? 1857.
What are we born?
I think he was the one who remained actually for that long without the power. Right? So Bahadur Shah, he was the one who actually remained in the throne. What? No, somewhere it is actually not so. Yes.
Before that, who will come?
That's why nobody came. But 1930 is very significant because the Cooch Behar, which is the territory of West Bengal, when it is occupied by the Bhutanese, he has sent a signal. He has sent the help. So he asked for the help to Mughals. But after that, Mughals gone, and then they asked English. Right? That's why I have put that point. Really good question. After telling everything else, I am saying which one? Mughal. Bahadur Shah 1. Bahadur Shah 1. So who is there? Who is that? Jahandar Shah, Shah Alam 2. Okay, Muhammad Shah, because before that. Yes? Not time up. Wait. So during this particular time, who is the emperor? Yes. Huh? Shah Alam, Bahadur Shah. So during the time of Sayyid brothers, who was the king? Yeah. During the time of Said brothers. Who was the king? Said brothers were also regarded as the kingmakers in the history. Yeah, Muhammad Shah. Yes. Muhammad Shah. Yes, Muhammad Shah was the king. Right? At the age of 17, with the help of Said brothers. Muhammad Shah. During the time of Muhammad Shah. Yes, he was the minor. Right? So after that, Said brothers were killed. Right? So upon the order of the Muhammad Shah. So he was the king. Right? After the Muhammad Shah, then the Bahadur Shah. Right? Later. Right? It was Muhammad Shah. Okay? So, did I say the same name Muhammad Shah previously? I remember then. Not confident, yes. Okay? So, 1730. Right? A chronology of studying the historical relationship between India and Bhutan starts with 1730, when the Cooch Behar was actually occupied by the Bhutanese soldiers, and we asked for the Mughals' assistance. Right? We asked for the Mughal resistance, thus establishing a relationship between the Bhutan and Mughals. Right? After Mughal has actually interfered, so we have got the relationship between the Bhutan emperor as well as the Mughals. And in 1770, right, this was the early phase where the British dominance is actually rising, right, because they have occupied the Bengal province, right? What?
1730.
Sorry, 1730, so my mistake. The Bengal province has actually requested the Bhutan assistance, right, in controlling the Mughal occupation in the Cooch Behar, right? Thus, that is the first time where the India has formed the assistance to the Bhutan, thus forming a relationship between the Bhutan as well as India. So, I have twisted the sentences, right? So, in that way, in 1930, for the first time, we have maintained the relationship with the Bhutan kings. And in 1770, the Bhutan has invaded the Sikkim, supported by the troops from the Cooch Behar. Now, because we have got the assistance, the Cooch Behar and the Bhutan has come together, so they have occupied the Sikkim. They have occupied the Sikkim, and in 1772, it has become dependency of the British East India Company. So obviously, British East India Company has become the dominant power, right? In 1773, Regulating Act was actually passed, right? In 1772, so the East India Company has become the main power in the Bengal region. Thus, the Cooch Behar has actually become the dependent of British East India Company, and the British forces has driven Bhutanese out of the Cooch Behar. They have sent it away, right? And in 1774, the Dark Desi, right, the king of the Bhutan, has actually signed a treaty of peace with the British East India Company, right? So for the first time, the Bhutan has made an official signatory, has become the official signatory to the East India Company with the treaty. Under the treaty, the Bhutan returns to the pre-1730 boundaries and allows the British to harvest the timber in Bhutan, right? Because from the Cooch Behar, the East India Company has sent all the Bhutanese away to maintain the agreement. The Bhutan, what it did, so it is like, we'll sign a treaty. As per the treaty, we leave all the territories which were occupied after 1730 and we'll go to the pre-war positions, right? And also, for the East India Company, the Bhutan is of extreme importance because for the construction of the ships, the timber is required. Because all the trade used to happen only through the seas, right? For the construction of the ships, timber is extremely important, and Bhutan is an important source of that particular timber. So in that agreement, so they'll move to the pre-war positions of 1730 and they can access all the timber of Bhutan. And next one, in 1815, there were border conflicts between East India Company as well as Bhutan. So in 1815, there were border tensions between East India Company because the Bhutan tried to occupy the new territories which are under the control of East India Company. So there were tensions. And 1838, the British mission through Thimphu. The British has actually sent a mission to capital of Bhutan, right? As per this mission, it offers Bhutan a treaty providing the extradition of Bhutanese official. They have captured the Bhutanese official, right? And it said, okay, we'll extradite the Bhutanese officials to you. We'll give the Bhutanese officials back to you. And free and unrestricted commerce between India and the Bhutan has to be guaranteed, right? Whatever the trade we want, right? Because it is before 1858. So before 1858, whatever you might see, whatever the policy British has actually made henceforth, it is only to increase the trade and commerce. It is to occupy the new territories so that the market of East India Company is actually increasing. So for the same reasons, so when the border tensions were there between the Bhutan as well as the East India Company has captured the personnel, the Bhutanese personnel, and it has sent the mission to Thimphu saying that your people I will release. So you have to make sure there is a free and unrestricted commerce between the India and the Bhutan, and also settlement of Bhutan debt to the British. So whatever the money you have taken it from me, give it back, right? And in an attempt to protect the independence, the Bhutan has rejected the British offer, right? So obviously we know about the British, right? So subsidiary alliance, doctrine of lapse. Ultimately, through the subsidiary alliance, you will be losing autonomy completely, right? And the first territory to sign the subsidiary alliance is Hyderabad, right? First territory to sign the subsidiary alliance is the Hyderabad. So instead of losing the autonomy, it was like, no, I don't need, right? And in 1841, the British has annexed the Bhutanese controlled Assam Duars, right? All the Assam Duars which were there, which were under the control of the Bhutanese, they were occupied, and they have accepted to pay the compensation of 10,000 rupees a year to the Bhutan. So we want these territories, you take 10,000 rupees. In that way, they made an agreement. And in 1862, the Bhutan forces has raided the Sikkim and the Cooch Behar, and the British responded by withholding all the compensation payments. So they have to pay 10,000 every year. And because it has occupied the Sikkim and the Cooch Behar, right, expansionist policy, so in that way it is a threat to the British as well. So what it did, so whatever the compensation amount that has to be paid, it has withheld, and demanding the release of all the captives and return the stolen property. And 64, right, it has sent the peace mission to the Bhutan. The Britain has actually, remember, whatever the crisis that may be, the British never tried to occupy the Bhutan by war. Right? Whatever the crisis that may be, whatever the issue that may be, right? Always the British is sending the peace missions to the Bhutan, but never tried to occupy. Buffer. Right? Because it wanted that region to be the buffer region. Right? That's why it never tried to occupy the Bhutan, even though it is the smallest one. Okay? And it actually led to the War of Bhutan, right? In which the Bhutan lost, in which the Treaty of Sinchla was actually signed between India and the Bhutan. The Treaty of Sinchla was actually signed between, it is a very important treaty, Treaty of Sinchla, in which 50,000 has to be paid to the British, 50,000 rupees has to be paid to the British, and also there were a few arrangements between the two. Okay? So in 1885, this is a altogether different development, whereas Ugyen Wangchuk has actually consolidated the power, and he declared himself as a monarch. Right? He declared himself to be the monarch. So he established an altogether different kingdom. Right? Ugyen Wangchuk. Okay? And he maintained really close relationship with the Britain. And in that way, the British has become the protectorate of Bhutan. Right? The British has become the protectorate of Bhutan. We'll see. In 1907, the Ugyen was elected as the first Bhutan's hereditary ruler, the monocratic, right? So I am the hereditary ruler, right? He was elected. And in 1910, Treaty of Punaka, where 1 lakh has to be paid to the British, as well as the British has accepted that there will be non-interference into the internal affairs of the Bhutan. There is no way we are going to involve into your internal affairs, right? So in this way, right, because of the Treaty of Punaka, so finally the British has become the protectorate of Bhutan. So we already discussed about the two words, protectorate and protectionist. These two words we have discussed previously. Right? What is the difference between protectorate and protectionist? And after British has become the protectorate of the Bhutan, and after the British has left, India by default has become the protectorate of Bhutan, by default, de facto. De facto protectorate. India has become the de facto protectorate of Bhutan, right, by default. Right, because British left, who is actually protecting, now it is a burden upon India. So what are the two words? Protectorate, protectionist. And let me add one other point. Now, India is not a protectorate of Bhutan. India is just a protectionist. India is not a protectorate now. As per the India-Bhutan New Friendship Treaty, India is no longer a protectorate, it is just a protectionist. Protectorate means we will give all the assistance without interfering into the external affairs, but all the external affairs will be guided by India. That means the foreign policy of the Bhutan is as directed by India. That is protectorate. Right? We said there won't be any interference into the internal affairs. But whatever the relationship you want to establish with the other countries, right, we will assist you. We will tell you with whom you want to talk. Right? That is the protectorate. Whereas protectionist, right? Protectionist means your foreign policy, it is up to you to make. We will not interfere either in the internal or the external affairs. But whenever there is an external threat comes, we will there to protect you. Right? The previously, we will be there to protect you, but any relationship you establish with the foreign territories, you have to tell me. Right? It is as per the guidance of the bigger nation. Right? So it is as per the guidance of the bigger nation. But protectionist, your entire domestic policy and the foreign policy is upon you. If there is any threat from the external sources, we will be there to protect you. That is protectionist and protectorate now as per the new policy. So we have changed it. This is the historical relationship between India and Bhutan. Any queries so far? No, clear? So tomorrow we are going to discuss after the independence.